Hello, I'm Rainbow Sparkle and I'm reading The Enchanted Wood by Enid Blyton, and this is chapter 22, The Army of Red Goblins. One day, Mother said that she would be out for the whole day, and if the children liked, they could invite the old saucepanman for tea and any other two friends that they had made. Good, said Joe, we'll ask Moonface and Silkie. So Bessie wrote a note and gave it to the little white goat to take to Moonface. The little white goat was a wonderful creature. It gave the most delicious milk and ran errands, and if any of the hens got out, it found them and brought them back. It was most useful. The goat took the note in its mouth and ran off to the Enchanted Wood. It came to the faraway tree and bleated to the red squirrel who peeped out from its hole down inside the trunk. The squirrel took the note out and bounded up to Moonface with it. Moonface was delighted and shouted down to Silkie, who came up to read it. We'll ask the old saucepanman as soon as Mr. What's-his-name is asleep, said Moonface. The children haven't asked Mr. What's-his-name, so Saucepan will have to creep down the tree with us, without telling him. They sent the note back by the little goat, saying that they would arrive at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The children were excited. Mother had gone by that time, and the girls began to make the cottage look pretty with jars of flowers. Bessie baked some chocolate cakes. Aunt Fanny made some toffee. Joe brought in some radishes from the garden and washed them, and then he cut bread and butter. We're going to have a fine tea, he said. I hope Saucepanman won't be too deaf this afternoon. Oh, I rather hope so, said Fanny with a giggle. He says such funny things then. So actually, I do hope so. By 3 o'clock, everything was ready. The children were neat and clean. The table looked fine with its radishes, cakes and toffee. Bessie went to the gate to look out for their visitors. She couldn't see them coming down the lane. Oh, they are late, she said to the others. I expect Saucepanman has got tangled up with the saucepans or something. 3:30 came and no visitors. The children were rather disappointed. Perhaps Moonface read my letter wrongly and thought it was at 4 o'clock maybe, said Bessie. But when 4 o'clock came and still no Moonface, Silkie and Saucepan, the children got really worried. I do hope nothing's happened to them, said Bessie, feeling upset. It's all our nice tea and there's no one here to eat it. Except us, said Fanny. Can't we begin? Oh, we'll wait a bit longer and then we'll eat our share, said Joe. So when 5 o'clock came and no one had arrived, the children sadly ate half the tea to themselves. Something's happened, said Joe gloomily. Oh dear, what do you think it is? Said Bessie, alarmed. Could we go and see? No, said Joe, not now anyway. Mother will be back soon and we'd better go tonight maybe. The ropes let down the tree for us all to pull ourselves up by then, so it won't take us long to go up. We really must find out what's wrong, said Bessie, clearing again. We'll take our share of tea with us then for them. So that night, when it was quite dark, the children slipped out of bed, dressed and crept through the back door. They had to take a lantern, for there was no moon that night. Joe swung it in front of them so they could see where they were going. Down the dark lane they went, over the ditch and into the Enchanted Wood. The trees were whispering very loudly together tonight. Wisha, 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 they said. Oh, how I wish I knew what they were saying, said Fanny. Come on, said Joe. We'd better not be too long, Fanny. We want to be back by daylight. They made their way through the dark wood. As there was no moon, there was no fairy folk about at all that night. Everything was very dark and very quiet, except that the trees whispered loudly all the time. The children soon came to the faraway tree and looked for the rope. But there was no rope this time. They had to begin to climb up as usual, holding on to the boughs carefully, and it was very difficult to see. Before they hadn't gone too far, more than 2 branches up, a strange thing happened. Someone caught hold of Joe's shoulder and pushed him roughly down. Joe fell and caught the lowest branch, and it just saved himself in time. "Who did that?" he shouted angrily. He undid his lantern from his belt where he had fastened it on and flashed it up the tree, calling to Bessie and Fanny to go no further. And standing grinning on the lower branch of the tree were 4 red goblins with pointy ears, wide mouths, and wicked little eyes. "What did you push me for?" said Joe angrily. "No one is allowed to go up the tree now," one of them said. "And no one is allowed to come down either." "But why not?" said Joe. "Because it's our tree now," said the goblin. "Your tree? What nonsense," said Joe. "We've come to see our friends who live in the tree, so let us past." "No," said the goblin, and grinned widely. "You can't come up at all." "It's no good," said a tiny voice beside him. "The goblins have taken over all the tree as prisoner. If you go up, they'll only push you down and take you prisoner too." Joe flashed his lantern downward, and the children saw that it was a little red squirrel speaking, the one who looked after the cushions for Moonface. "Hello," said Joe. "Do tell me what's happened. I can't understand it." "Oh, it's easy enough to understand," said the squirrel. "The land of the red goblins came up to the top of the faraway tree, and the goblins found the hole that leads down the clouds, and they've all come down, and they've taken everyone in the tree prisoner. Moonface and everyone else are locked up in their houses. I can tell you Mr. What's-his-name and the angry pixie have nearly battered their doors down in rage." "But why have the goblins locked them up?" said Bessie. "Well, they want some magic spells that the tree dwellers know," said the squirrel. "They are only going to keep them all locked up till they tell them the spells. It's dreadful, isn't it?" "Oh dear," said Fanny. "Whatever can we do to help them?" "I don't know," said the squirrel sadly. "If only you could get up to them, you might be able to help make a plan. But the goblins won't let anyone up the tree." "Wisha, wisha, wisha," whispered the trees loudly. "You know, I couldn't help feeling that the trees wanted to tell us something tonight," said Bessie suddenly. "I always feel that they are whispering secrets to one another, but tonight I felt that they wanted to tell us something." "I wouldn't be at all surprised," said the squirrel. "The faraway tree is king of the wood, and now the trouble has come to it all, and the trees are angry. Perhaps they want to help us." "Wisha, wisha, wisha," said the trees loudly. "Put your arms round a trunk and press your left ear against it, said the squirrel suddenly. I have heard it said that this is the only way to hear words that the tree is trying to say. Each of the children found a small tree. They put their arms around the trunk and pressed their ear hard against it. Of course, why didn't they ever think of it themselves? Shh, said the squirrel in alarm. Don't let the goblins hear you. What did the trees say? They said, we were to go through the trapdoor up the slippery slip, said Joe in a low voice. We can get right up to Moonface then. It's a wonderful idea. Come on then, said Bessie, and the three of them ran to the faraway tree and felt about for the trapdoor. Oh, they knew this was going to lead to another adventure.